grab your 10 shots of espresso and slap your Quest 2 for good luck. Because there's a lot of VR games out there for the Quest 2, but I think I've gathered 10 Quest 2 games that you need to give a try. Starting off, we have Star Wars Vader Immortal Trilogy. The game may only last over 90 minutes, but it's worth it. It's an episodic series. There's fun lightsaber combat to be both had in the story and the excellent dojo mode that will have you swinging for hours. But this game has its best moments when it comes to basking in the presence of the Dark Lord himself, Darth Vader, and meeting other characters in VR. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you'll find yourself thrown deep into this VR experience like no other. Next, we have a fan favorite, Bone Labs. This is pretty much a part 2 to Boneworks, which is best known for its physics simulation and sandbox gameplay. Bone Lab brings the Boneworks experience to the standalone Quest 2 for the first time, with a good short campaign and one of the coolest extensive sandboxes I've seen in VR. If that's what you're looking for, then Bone Lab will be an interesting pick for you to try out. Next, we have one called Green Hell VR. In 2022, they brought the experience over to VR, but with a little catch. There are actually 2 different releases for this game. One of them is for the Quest 2 and one's for PC VR. Well, the PC VR version is a full copy of the original game. The Quest 2 version of Green Hell VR is not the exact same experience as a flat screen game at all. Green Hell VR on the Quest 2 follows the exact same story beats, however, it's more focused on a streamlined version that reduces some of the aspects of the game. Even with these few cuts from the game, I can guarantee you it's still a deep and taxing survival game that any fan of the survival genre will actually enjoy. Next is Red Matter 2. Red Matter 2 is a great sci-fi adventure and one of the most impressive visual showcases available on the Quest 2 right now. After the creators producing a similar stunning experience with the original game Red Matter, the developers Virtual Robot doubled down on creating a compelling and stunning sci-fi game with a sequel. The gameplay can be fairly slow, but it's due to focusing on the amazing environmental puzzles and the occasional combat. Some of the puzzles may be frustrating to many people, especially towards the end, so just keep that in mind and don't be afraid of looking up tutorials online if you get stuck on a hard one. Any issues in the pacing of the game is supplemented by one of the most stunning, beautiful sci-fi vistas and environments. Then we have a big fan favorite, Echo VR. Now this is a game I would really like to see come to the Quest 2 natively one day. It's a multiplayer zero gravity game. You take part in crazy and exciting futuristic esports, throwing discs to score points on your team. This can be a very fast-paced game, so keep that in mind too. Echo VR has stood the test of time as a multiplayer game with a growing community, and over the years it's still quite active even for being a bit of an older title. This is one of the best Quest 2 games you can honestly give a shot. Plus it's free, so why not? If you're into any battle royale game like Fortnite or Apex, you'll love Population 1. This battle royale shooter takes place on a huge map, which teams of 3 battle it out to see which one is the last one standing. Choose where to drop, scavenge for supplies, and make sure to stay in the safe zones as you fight for survival against the other players. Not only is this game a really solid shooter, but it's got some great VR mechanics to it too, like scaling up walls with your hands or holding your arms out to the side to glide down. Just to warn you, it can be pretty intense of an experience that certainly won't be for everyone. But if you're looking for a battle royale fix in VR, this is probably one of your best bets that you can get right now. Onward is a great multiplayer VR shooter game that's actually pretty fun. It definitely faces stiff competition against the slowly growing VR shooter game space. The wire-free gameplay really comes into its own space, opening up new tactics like easily going prone, which you already know you're going to be teabagging your enemies. Yes, the game kind of suffers a little bit because they gotta compress it and get it to run on the VR headset, but when you're aiming down sights, scanning for targets, you won't really notice. Onward really does pay close attention to realism, making it a game that can be really hard to get grips on, but absolutely worth it to learn once you are ready to hop in. And then we have Resident Evil VR. Everyone had their doubts when this game was announced that it was going to be coming to VR, but it didn't just survive the transition, but ended up being one of the arguably best meta VR games so far. This is a full port of Leon Kennedy's best-known zombie adventure, with a first-person view and full motion control support. Sure, some of the elements of the version of the game doesn't really hold up that well and kind of flop a bit, such as the virtual cut screens that don't really look that great. But when you're facing a crazy horde of enemies with your back literally pinned against the wall, it's hard to care. This is a great way to revisit a classic game, and I hope more games follow suit. And then we have Dimio. Dimio isn't a perfect tabletop game by far, but it's a really good one, and more importantly, it's a 4-player multiplayer VR experience that makes it feel fun and interesting to have a social event. You pick a class and you tackle randomly generated dungeons, but the game's punishing pushing difficulty means that sessions can last anywhere from a few minutes to multiple hours depending on your skills. Dimio is already cemented as an amazing Oculus Quest 2 game with more content on the way, including new dungeons and features. It's only going to get better from here, so you better keep your eyes out on it. And then finally, we have The Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners. This game carries arguably the best design and user interactions you'll find in VR, but Saints and Sinners delivers all that and much more. With ridiculously entertaining physics-based combat, they'll have you fighting tooth and nail, wrestling with hordes of undead zombies, but also having you throw every ounce of effort you can into every swing and stab towards the undead. Saints and Sinners packs its action into a full, meaty, thick with 3C VR campaign that sees you fighting through the remains of New Orleans. Add in the curveball of also fighting human enemies, which is going to be really wild, side missions, and the ability to kill zombies with a spoon. Yes, I can't make this up. You'll have one of the coolest native VR games on the market. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you like any of these games, or you've even played any, make sure you tell me down in the comments because I would love to hear.